All right, my friends, this is one of the best retirement charts I've ever created. And when I say I created it, I use my ingenuity, my creativity, get an idea in my head, think about it, do some research on it, put it into Google Sheets, throw it over to Claude and Claude AI, and I come up with this one I'm going to share with you as this can be going in my book. Dude, it's freaking fantastic. I love it. I love the whole strategy. I love the whole structure of how this works with AI, with Google Sheets. Remember all this stuff, dude. You know what I'm saying? But it's amazing to me how far we've come. I'm just reading this book on what's the name of the town? Grovetown, New Hampshire. I read it in the morning about how there used to be a mill town there, a paper mill town, and just like guys used to have to go out with an axe and a saw on a horse to chop down trees and freaking farm labor camps that they were living out there in the middle of the wintertime in northern New Hampshire. You know what I'm saying? That's just 120 years ago. Crazy. And now here I am in my freaking t-shirt, my dog right there. It's amazing how far we've come. And not to just sit there and belabor how good we have it, or belittle, I should say. Like, we're just spoiled children. We are, but we should also be grateful for what the people who came behind us. Don't spit on the country, dude. That's why I can't stand these idiots like Ilhan Omar and all these fools that come here. Like, don't come here and spit on my country. Get the hell out of here. These guys did not do the work so you could come here and pee all over the United States of America. You freaking clowns. It really ticks me off. I'm sitting there thinking, they got guys who died out there who were laboring, white guys, French Canadians, whatnot, laboring out there in the middle of the wintertime in northern New Hampshire without a freaking pot to pee in. So you can be here today and come here as no one, just the whole thing ticks me off. Anyway, so check this out. So what I'm doing here is I'm comparing 4%, we're all in the S&P 500. I'm comparing 4% a year annual withdrawals adjusted with inflation versus 8% of the previous year's balance. All right, so 8% of the previous year's balance simply means if you ended up in the year with $1 million, you'd take 80,000 out the next year. You ended up the year with $500,000, you'd take 40,000 out the next year. Ended up the year with $2 million, you'd take 160,000 out the next year. That's all we're doing. 8% previous year of what we're taking out versus 4% adjusted with inflation. And you can see the withdrawal rates for the S&P 500 for the 4% are in blue, well below the withdrawal rates for my 8%. And you can see we have a significant divergence until right there when we had mass inflation because of Wilson's World War I, and then it just leveled off here. And you can see the markets, we're taking out money. We're not getting crushed, but we're still doing well until right then, and that's 16, 17 years in when the 4% rule took us over. And we had a little bit gap there, but then when the great market run of the 20s because of Calvin Coolidge, massive tariffs, and restriction of immigration, you can see it took off again. All right, so when we go to 1910 and 1939, same thing, bouncing around. 4% rule did better here. My rule did better. 4% rule did better. My rule, but they're all within spit distance of each other. And you can see all this. 1980 to 2009, you can see my rule smoked the S&P, smoked the 4%. 1990 to 2019, my rule smoked the 4%. Come here. 1960 to 1989, you can see right here, we smoked the 4% until right there, 1974, and then we got smoked. We're basically 1970, 1999, we're basically tracked with a 4% rule until the latter part of the decade of the market's going crazy. Anyway, so you can see all this right here. 1920 to 1949, we smoked the 4% rule. 1930, 1959, by and large, we smoked the 4% rule, and I think I got everything else in here too. Let's see here. Anyway, so what I've done, what I've asked Claude to do, I said, hey, compare a chart. We could just, and I'll link this, you can do it yourself. Historical withdrawal strategy. Select a starting year to see how different withdrawal strategies are formed over the next 30 years. So we're going to start in 1969. And we're going to click on right there. So you can see we've got a drop down thing. We're 1969 to 1989. That's 30 years. All right. And what you're going to see here is you can see 4% fixed withdrawal rate. Your final, not portfolio value, it's actually your final distribution amount. We got to fix that, but it's no big deal. And you can see $170,000 was the final amount you took with the 4% rule after 30 years. Your 8% withdrawal rate was $115,000. All right. So this is 1960 to 1999. And you can see we start off much higher. And then we got skunked right about there is when the 4% rule really took us over. Basically 24, 25 years in there. So we're much higher. the we being the good guys in the 8% thing, we're keeping pace, and then right there in 1984, the 4% rule proceeded to do better than us. In fact, we just kind of leveled off and started going down a little bit. And that's almost the worst case scenario. But even that, the likelihood of you surviving 30 years in retirement isn't high. But then we say, okay, that's that stinks. But the 4% rule did. But how about 1950 to 1979? You can see we did significantly better. Our last year, we took $100,000 out. The last year, the 4% rule took $125,000. But look how much better we did all the way up until right then in the year 1976. Oh, man, mosquito. Dude, I know I'm sweet, but oh, I got him. I got him, sucker. So we were, 27 years in retirement before the 4% rule beat us. We spent so much more money in the front end of retirement than the 4% rule. This is ridiculous. We go to 1940 to 1969. We spent even more in the last year than the 4% rule last year, and look how much more we spent than the 4% rule. It's ridiculous. The 8% rule did significantly better than the 4%. Now, there's some volatility in there. That's the one drawback, is volatility, but it's volatility on the upside. Okay, that's not so bad. 1930, 1959, same thing. 4% rule. We had a couple years right down here where we underperformed, but other than that, we just smoked the 4% rule. The 8% rule did. Last year, the 4% rule was only taking 80,000 out. We were taking 100,000 out. All right, let's go to 1920 to 1949. Last year, the 4% rule was only taking 57,000 out. We were taking 60,000 out. And again, look at this. We just destroyed the 4% rule. Crazy. 1910 to 1939. Last year, the 4% rule took 60,000 out. We took 49,000 out. But look how much more volatility here. We had more, less, significantly less, more. I mean, that's it's a risk for sure. But even at the end of the game, we're only taking out 11,000 less than the 4% rule, assuming that you even survived that long. I think, did I already do 1900? 1900, look at this. Yeah, so taking out 20 out of one, then we got smoked, then we smoked it again. And I think we stopped at 19. Let's go to 19. Did I already do 1970? Yeah, we killed them in 1970 and 1999. 1980 to 2009. Look at this. The last year, the 4% rule took out 185. We took out 15. But look how much more we're spending in the interim. I mean, it's just crazy. 1990 to 2019. Same thing. 1990 to 2019. We're destroying the 4% rule. And 2000 to 2000, well, it's not 2029, but you can see right here. This year, right here, 2000, we're getting beat by the 4% rule, assuming the 4% rule actually survives, right? And why are we getting beat? Because we're taking 8% of previous year. And the S&P went down 9, 11, 22%, got down 57% here. So we got smoked in that time frame. Anyway, so there's a way you can do this. You can go publish and copy link. So I'm going to publish this and copy the link, and I'll put it in the show notes here. So if you want to click on it, well, let me know. I mean, that'd be pretty interesting to see how that shakes out for you. This is Claude. It's just, again, you got to create the stuff, but they can run with it and do some pretty good stuff. And I love this. And again, this is going back to my book. I create all these things, all these Excel spreadsheets or graphs. What the hell? Puppies! But I think you'll get a kick out of this. So, and there's more. I mean, we can do it every single 20, 30-year time frame if we want. I have it all in Excel spread data or Google Sheets database. It's just, we can do it to show, but I think, and maybe I will do that to create it for you guys to look at. But in terms of my book, that's just overwhelming. No one's going to want to see pages and pages and pages of this. So what I'm going to do, instead of putting all these visuals in my book, and I have tons of visuals, don't get me wrong, but I'm just going to put links so you can go look at yourself. All right, God bless. Love your thoughts. We'll see you. Smash and tickle that like button. Tickle, tickle, tickle.